The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Welcome to On the Mat. I am Kyle Klingman of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, joined by the King of War, Andy Hamilton of TrackWrestling.com, and not war in the traditional sense. It means wins above replacement, a stat that I think we should adopt for wrestling. Any chance we could get that, Andy? I didn't know about war until you told me, so I really like this stat. Could we do it? We talked about stats.
I don't know. How would it...
What would you do?
Like what would a 500 wrestler be a 0 war wrestler? 0 wins above replacement? Or would it be like, what would replacement level be?
I don't know.
See, we don't, the thing is in baseball, you've got 30 teams. So it's pretty clearly defined. You got 30 teams with 25 players per team. They're all playing against each other, relatively equal skill level, whereas college wrestling, I guess we still have 330 making the NCAA championships. So is a replacement level. And a replacement level wouldn't necessarily be a national qualifier. How would we define that?
Yeah,
how would we define replacement level?
Because you just said 500, but not everyone's 500 across the board. So could you get an average of the average? How would you work those numbers? Because there's wrestlers that have more competition, some less. Someone might be 17-2 going into the NCAA tournament. They might be 30-5. Just so many different variables. I don't know what that would look like. I feel like
this is an assignment for Seton Hall Pirate.
Would he do it?
I think he'd do it.
How do we get him on that?
I don't know. If you're listening, Pirate, get on that. Start figuring that out.
I still got to go to our go-to guy. Wouldn't Jason Bryant be the guy for that too? Couldn't he?
Maybe.
He'd be a good guy. We come up with the ideas and then just pass it off to someone else.
Yeah, we're good at that, aren't we?
We're really good. That's the marquee of our show, man. Pass it off to someone else that knows more than we do. I'm a little long on the marquee, but we have a guy with a great nickname, Mark the Mangler Manning, is going to be on the show today. If you need to go back to YouTube and get reacquainted with what he did when he made some tackles or a tackle at the University of Nebraska, they had a promotion with the football team. Go and type in Mark the Mangler Manning and you'll find some stuff. But Mark, head wrestling coach at Nebraska, he's got to be excited because he has 2 world team members in James Green and Jordan Burroughs. He's got 20% of the team being Huskers, and they had Final X in Lincoln, Nebraska. They got things rolling in Husker Nation.
They do, and he doesn't know it yet. We're going to put him on the spot with some tough questions here.
He doesn't, and I like that he doesn't know it. That's fun that we get to lead into that. And
we're going to put him on the hot seat.
Yeah.
We're going to make him play true or false, Kyle.
Yeah, stick around for that. We don't know what he's going to say, how he's going to respond to what we say, but we know that Mark's a gamer, as evidenced by him going out and trying to make a tackle. This is our attempt to tackle him back. So we're going to give him 5 true or false questions and see what he comes up with. So
maybe 6.
We might extend it a little bit because it is Mark the Mangler Manning. We want to give him a little extra shove and show him that we mean business on the mat.
Absolutely. Back to the war thing for a minute.
I like this.
What all would go into that? Would it be like, because baseball, you've got base running's part of it. You got obviously offense is part of it. Defense is part of it. Would it be there'd have to be a defensive component. There'd have to be a defensive component. There would have to be a top component. There would have to be a neutral component, I think.
I think you solved some of it, though. Like, this might be a way to give credit for Zane Rutherford over a guy that's winning 3-2. So maybe there's something you could do with the scores and not just wins. Maybe it's, hey, if you get a fall, you get a certain number and that places you somewhere else. I like what you're thinking. You were more extensive than I was. I was just thinking point values. The more pins you get, that gives you more wins above replacement versus someone that is losing or lower scores. I don't know how you'd weed all of that out, but I think that would be fun to do that, to get an actual wins above replacement for a guy like Zane Rutherford or Cale Sanderson or David Taylor or Tom Brands, Mark Perry, whoever it is. I think there's some fascinating elements to that.
It would give us a way to compare eras a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what the reason we're talking about this is kind of what's going on in Major League Baseball right now. We were talking about Mike Trout and the unbelievable career he's had to this point, but also the amazing season he's had to this point. Jeff Passan wrote a piece. If you remember, he wrote an incredible piece in Rio about Jordan Burroughs and the rough day he had in Rio. And I think you can, if you search for Jeff Passan, Passan, you'll probably be able to Google that article and find it. It was really well done for a guy that doesn't normally cover wrestling, but he's a phenomenal baseball writer. He wrote a piece here recently about how unbelievable it is right now. What we're seeing is Mike Trout's having perhaps the best season in Major League history, while Chris Davis is having perhaps the worst season in Major League Baseball history, and they're happening at the same time. So that's pretty interesting that you can compare historical eras like that a little bit. There's not so much gray area with it because it's a little bit of a sliding scale per season.
And it will be difficult to compare eras. And when I think of WAR, wins above replacement, I'm thinking strictly college wrestling. I don't think you can do it with freestyle or Greco-Roman just because of the rule changes, just because you have the period system at one point, just because you have all those factors. There were times where takedowns didn't even count if you go way back. So I don't know if you can cross over with that as much, but I think college wrestling, even though there were 8-minute matches for a while, 9-minute. Now we're down to 7-minute matches for college wrestling. I think it's just a little bit easier to compare college wrestling.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like, there's been some pretty radical changes in college wrestling, as you mentioned, too. Heck, there was a point in time, Kyle, where matches were determined by writing time, right?
It's true. Yeah, that's what makes it difficult. Yeah, I mean, there were 2-point writing time points at one time. If you got 2 minutes, you got 2 minutes of writing time. You have the neutral danger zone rule right now. And as we think about Mark Manning coming up, Brian Snyder, he was in a situation where they had the double overtime rules where it was a flip of a coin and you got to choose up or down. And if you rode out or got out for the 30-second period, you didn't have those two opportunities like you do now. So I think that's the right rule for right now, but all those rule changes play a factor. I can't believe Snyder is not a NCAA champion. It's just hard for me to believe. He had such a great season his senior year, got beat by Luke Becker on that call, and he's a 2-time runner-up, 2-time finalist.
Both in tiebreakers.
Yeah, both in tiebreakers. I think the other one was TJ Williams. Yeah. So hard to believe that, but you're right. It's problematic on how you would equate that because baseball has been pretty straightforward. You can compare, I don't know enough about it, but there's dead ball era and what goes into that. So I saw you looking up Baseball Reference. You kind of threw out some of those pre-World War II era, said, we aren't going to count those. Let's just go with this.
Like the dead ball era, some of the statistics from the 1800s are absolutely insane. Like, the old Haas Radborn, 1884, 73 complete games, 600 innings pitched, something like that, 670 innings pitched.
Where wrestling's the opposite. It's back then there was hardly any matches. They hardly wrestle at all. Dan Hodge is 46-0 for a career over 3 years, and now you get kids at 5 years old getting 100 matches. So it's a kind
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Isn't that absolutely incredible?
I don't know how it's possible.
Yeah.
Just even the abuse. I think that's why you see guys in their senior years, they're injured, is because they have all of those matches. You have 1,500 matches going into that.
Yeah, there's a lot of miles on the tires now by the time guys even get to college. I think I was talking to Doug Schwab one time, and he said, if I'm not mistaken, he was saying some of these guys are probably wrestling more matches by the time they get to college than he did in his entire life.
Yeah. I think it's completely true. I think that's right on point with where the sport is these guys are getting surgeries at the high school age. And I don't know that it's necessarily bad if there's kids that want to do it, but I think we are in an era that kids probably overcompete a little bit. I think there's times where they probably do need to back off and maybe rest their bodies, but that we're in an era where it's competitive and you want to see guys in the fold as much as possible.
Yeah, there's pros and cons, right? I mean, we're seeing the greatest era of age division success in the United States that we've ever seen. We're seeing guys winning at a high level, younger than they ever have, doing some unbelievable things. But we're probably going to see guys, maybe, my guess is we're going to see guys getting out of the game a little bit earlier than what they might have 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. But you have to do that. I mean, we've talked so much about the youth movement. The reason it's happening is because these guys are getting so good and they have the competition. You almost have to do it now. Have it be in these competitions day in and day out, or week in and week out. I think it's crucial to being that good. Now, on that though, what are we going to see with the youth movement 4 or 5 years down the line? Will Dayton Fix be able to maintain this? Will Gable Stevenson be able to maintain this? I hope so. I hope they can go to 28, 29. But it's a great storyline for the next decade to see how this is going to play out.
Absolutely.
What does the youth movement look like?
I don't think we really know, right? I mean, because the only guy that prior to this wave of talent, the only guy that I can remember in my lifetime really making a run at it was Cejudo at that age. You know, winning the Olympics at 21? Mm-hmm. And then we didn't see much of him after that. Yeah.
Made a comeback at 25, which is still really young. And there were some guys, Andre Metzger won a world medal at 19. Randy Lewis made a world team during his true freshman year. So there's a few guys, but now it's just, you put that stat out, the average age. It's really unbelievable where that stands right now. And the youth movement's taking over, but what's that going to look like in 5 years? I think I'm excited to follow that, to see where these guys are in 5 years.
5 years, heck, 2 years. Look at, you look down the road here, the 2020 trials, and you condense it down now to 6 weight classes for men's freestyle. I think the 2020 trials are going to be bonkers.
Overload there. I mean, it's when you condense it to 6 and just thinking about who's going to go where, it leaves you shaking your head because of the matchups. All those matchups you say, what if these guys met, they're going to happen in 2020. It's going to be absolutely insane with the amount of guys going into that.
Yeah,
60%.
You know, we're already sitting here talking about what weight class does James Green go? What weight class does Kyle Dake go? Zahid Valencia probably going to go up to 86 kilos. I think that's probably a foregone conclusion that he'll be at 86 in 2020, if not before. Mark Hall, what weight class does he go? I think that there's just so many. You know, Jaden Cox, does he go back to 86 or does he go up to 97?
And don't the weigh-ins affect what's going to happen there?
Yeah, I think that there are going to be some tough decisions made just based on, is this format still going to be in place the day of weigh-ins, or does United World Wrestling go back to day before? That will be a factor.
And with the Jaden Cox one, if it is our weigh-in, he's definitely going up to...
You would think, right?
I would think so. I mean, because he didn't like cutting down, from everything I hear, going down to 189 with the day weigh-in. Boy, I just can't even imagine an hour weigh-in and being functional, especially being at 202 right now.
That I'm with you on that one. I've got to think he's going to go up, but boy, it's no small task.
No.
You know, some of these, David Mercatani and I talked about it this week on Weighing In, that there are going to be some instances where your best chance to win a world title might not be at the best weight class for you to make the team, as in Kyle Dake. His odds of making the team, are they better at 86? Or, maybe are his chances of winning a world title are probably better at 74, but you're going to have to go through Jordan Burroughs and some other people there. So that's just one example. I think there's some other people like that.
Yeah. A lot of fun storylines here in the next 2 years, even where the Olympic trials are going to be and what those are going to look like. So we'll definitely be keeping track of all of that. Hey, just want to make sure before we keep talking about what's going on in wrestling, we're going to have Duane Watson on the program. You had a great interview with him last year. He's from Allendale, Michigan, the head wrestling coach. He brought out a crew of guys to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, and we saw a residual effect from the interview you did last year. I know a lot of people liked that. A lot of people really found his message compelling, and we get a chance to have him live in our studio today.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more, Kyle. I mean, that was a story of all the stories I've done at track wrestling over the course of the last 2 years. That's one that I felt like really had a lot of resonation with people across the country, a lot of reach on social media. I felt it would be one that would move the needle a little bit, but it kind of blew me away, even just the power of that story. And he explained, you could probably tell it better than me, but he explained that they just want to get back to wrestling. How did that story originate? How did they first get in touch with you to come out and do volunteer work here at the museum?
Dan was in Michigan, where they're from, and they made a connection there and just kind of explained their philosophy and their story on how they want to get involved. And I think his mission is he wants to be able to give back to the sport in a way that he can. So he knows he can't be Dan Gable. He knows he doesn't have the influence, but he knows that if he can help Dan Gable with projects so that he can go do his thing, he wants to be able to give back. So his core philosophy is wrestling's great. It's the best outlet, but we want to make sure we're giving. We're putting guys in a position where they're altruistic in their beliefs, but they're not only just doing it in their beliefs, they're doing it in action. And he's been kind enough to bring his team to the Dan Gable Museum and work on projects that we desperately need. So as a nonprofit, to be able to have that kind of support, that really means everything to us. And he's really moved the needle for us and made us a better organization. So to sit down with him and to have someone that has a philosophy that I love, I just think it's fantastic what he's done. And he deserves everything he gets, because that interview really took a lot of people and just made them believers in what they're doing. And just the emails he got and some emails I've gotten about that, I just am glad that someone like that gets the return on investment.
Absolutely. I want to ask you this. So what do you think when they first reached out to you and they said, he says, I want to bring my wrestling team 7 hours away to come to the Gable Museum and put them to work? That's unbelievable to me.
It's still unbelievable 3 years later. I still don't know how it's possible that they would want to do that, and they're excited, and they have coaches just begging, like, hey, I'm going to be on the trip, right? I get to paint. I get to do all these projects. And they're doing the nitty-gritty work, and they don't want any recognition. They don't want any appreciation. They just want to do it because they want to give back. But we appreciate them. They're awesome. And I love the mentality they have. And I love that you saw that and you wanted to hop on it. And I think you did another interview with them while they were here. So a follow-up to what you had last year. I think you caught me on the couch after a hard day of work for me. You caught me just lounging on the couch. So I wish
the guys from Allendale are around here busting their butts. And there's Kyle on the couch with his feet up.
My first thought was, how do you edit a video so you can do that? I don't know if there's something you can mark it out, but look for me in the background. I'm laying on the couch, and Andy caught me. So great camera work on that. So we get a chance to talk to Duane about his influence on the Gable Museum and his influence on the sport. So stick around for him, and then stick around for Mark Manning. We want to tie it up here with talking about the most recent Final X. Nothing really went against what I thought it would. I thought Valencia might sneak in a match. Actually, I guess I thought Valencia had a legitimate shot of beating Kyle Dake. But Kyle Dake's defense, his hips are legendary. Unbelievable. And his ability to just stay calm and stay in position. And if you're going to shoot on Kyle Dake, you better have something ready to finish right away.
Yeah, I think the thing that was really reinforced to me, it's weird though. I thought Zahid would be in the mix to win a match or maybe the series. And yet I came away from it thinking this guy's going to be a force for a long, long time.
Zahid.
Yeah. Because we've seen what Kyle Dake has done this year. Lost in the Oregon finals, but outside of that, I mean, he was on fire at the World Cup. And as you mentioned, if Kyle Dake has the lead at the World Championships this year, he is going to be darn near impossible to beat when you've got to come to him, when you've got to fire off shots against him.
Yeah. He just
so good in so many positions.
It's kind of like the same philosophy when Brandon Slade beat Satiev in 2000. You can't hang on. You better finish immediately or you're going to be in big trouble. Different styles, of course. Kyle Dake has that front body lock that he's just lethal with, but boy, you better finish, and you just can't just hang on to a leg. And Zahid learned that even if you get into a double leg, it's not going to matter. A lot of times you think, hey, you have that position, you got him on his butt, you're probably going to finish 99% of the time. Kyle Dake's a different story.
Yeah, and I think, we all talked about 79 and 92, that when those weight classes were introduced last year in Paris, we thought, all right, Jaden's going to go up to 92, and this is going to set the stage for Dake and Taylor to make the team, and the United States is going to be tougher than ever, tougher than even a year ago when they won the world championship in Paris. But I feel like Zahid Valencia, and we've seen Deringer. Deringer went over to Ukraine and won a tournament over there and beat Hazanov, a couple-time world medalist, pretty convincingly in the finals. And then Zahid takes 2 straight from Deringer up in Rochester. I think the United States has 3 guys capable of, any of the 3 on the right day going and winning a world medal this year. So that's phenomenal for a non-Olympic weight class to have that kind of depth. And that's not even mentioning Mark Hall. If he's in the game this year, is he at 79 kilos? Probably. I
think so. Yeah.
I mean, that's where he wrestled Pan Am.
Yeah,
so.
I think, and I don't think he wants to cut down to 74 kilos. So, or were you saying where would he be in the?
I think he's another viable. I mean, a guy that a couple-time junior world champion. You got to think, 79 might
be where he'd be.
Well, I think it's definitely where he would be for 2020, but for 2018. But to have 4 guys that are that high caliber at a non-Olympic weight class, I think is unbelievable to me.
David Taylor also makes a world team. Hard to imagine when you think back 2013, you had Dake and Taylor in that legendary match in Des Moines, Iowa. Hey, they finally got it done. They're finally on a world team. Yeah. It just shows you how absolutely hard it is to make a world team, and that Jordan Burroughs making 8 in a row, that he's been able to do that. It puts it in perspective how great he is. It also puts it in perspective how great Kyle Dake and David Taylor are to stick around with this long and finally get it done. They had it bumped up to 10 weight classes, which I think is very necessary for the sport. But congratulations to those guys. They're 2 of the best, and they're finally getting their chance.
Yeah, it's great to see. And, you look at where we were as a country 10 years ago, even when, as I mentioned, Cejudo wasn't in the game very long. I mean, wins it in 2008, and then he's out for a couple years and makes the comeback in 2012. But Ben Askren makes the Olympic team, and I think that his career on the mat ended prematurely. In my eyes of where like he could have competed for years and years to come and been contender to make some more world teams and been right there at that weight class with Burroughs. Johnny Hendricks, we didn't see him on the mat in a post collegiate mat. The game has changed so much in 10 years, where athletes now with regional training centers, the money that they can make with endorsements. We didn't see too many guys making endorsement money, or at least like legitimate endorsement money. I think back to Mark Ironside telling me that you're talking about a Hodge Trophy winner, 4-time All-American, 2-time national champion, one of the biggest stars coming out of college wrestling, and he's got to work at like a UPS?
Yeah. Like
a midnight to 8 a.m. shift?
Yeah. Holly Thompson worked at Home Depot.
Yeah.
With the athlete program.
And guys were having to take coaching positions too. And now you still see some of the guys that are on coaching staffs. But there are a lot of guys that don't need it now to support themselves. And I think it's great to see that you can make a living now. You might not be making a living like guys in Major League Baseball or professional basketball, football. But they can get by. Now, I think that's great for the sport, and I think that that's a big reason why we're seeing the depth in these weight classes that we see now. I don't know if Kyle Dake or guys like Kyle Dake and David Taylor, if they had to go through what guys 20 years ago had to go through to get by. I don't know if you have the same kind of patience that these guys have now.
Well, and you bring up such an interesting point. I never kind of thought of it in this window, but just imagine if NBA and NCAA championships were in different times and you had to play in the NBA, but to really supplement your income, you had to go coach the NCAA. You had to coach a college team just to make that happen. It just seems unreal to be able to do that. You have to focus. You have to be an athlete first. You have to be selfish, all those things that you have to do to be a great athlete. And I think we're saying let these guys be selfish. Let them be the athlete. Let them have that window as long as they can. I hope Taylor and Dake go another cycle. I hope we get them for another 4 years after this, because I think they're finally coming into their own. Not that they weren't before that, but their opportunity is now. Let's see them go into their early 30s. I want them around for a while.
Yeah, me too.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to just see where they end up. And I think 2024 is well within the question of doing that. I think Jordan Burroughs has proven it.
Yep.
We have the team from Allendale, Michigan in the house again at the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum. For the third year in a row, we have Duane Watson, the head wrestling coach of the Allendale High School Wrestling Program and the architect behind what you're doing here. You had a lot of great buzz from Andy's video from last year on TrackWrestling.com about what you're doing. A lot of people embrace that. Could you just elaborate on why this is important, why the community service piece of this is so much more important to you than just building state championships and compiling records?
I think because so few people get to achieve a state championship mile mark in their lives, because there's only one every year, and there are so many more resources out there in the form of children who called wrestlers and parents in different communities that want to be part of something great, but they all can't be part of a state champion, being a state champion or a state championship team. Although that's, wonderful and great, and I would love to have that. There's so much more to be achieved by working with all the kids that will never be state champions.
And along with that, with the student portion of that, you also have a great residual effect, and that a lot of the coaches you have on staff, a lot of people here, you have 8 coaches, they were your athletes. That has to be fun for you to see that residual effect and have them want to be a part of this.
Yeah, we were just up on the roof looking at some repairs that got to be up there with one of the alum, and he's telling me about his wife and telling me about his kids, and one of them's on our team, and now he's so thrilled, and just a few minutes ago said how happy he is to be able to give back after wrestling's given him so much. So yeah, all of that is great.
You had an opportunity last year with Andy's interview to really showcase what you want to do with this program and how it means a lot to you. What kind of feedback did you get, not only from the community, but from others about that interview?
They just embraced it. It's hard to teach teenagers selflessness, and that's probably one of the biggest things we try to teach the kids is get out of your comfort zone to be cognizant and aware, and then reach out to others in a big way. And the opposite happened. We gave, and people gave to us. And, we ended up, the Cliff Keen organization outfitted our entire team with 56 brand new style, not singlets, but the new fight shorts and tops, and other people just gave. Pinnacle Corporation, Pinnacle Group Construction in Grand Rapids, Michigan, gave us $1,000 just because we're doing good things. And people in the community just opened up their hearts and their wallets and just started giving to us. And now the problem is to teach our kids to give without the expectation of getting, because we don't want them to give thinking we're going to give to get. But you do, and the community just absolutely, the wrestling community as well as our Allendale community just opened up to us and embraced the whole idea.
You had an opportunity with Dan Gable during this Dan Gable Museum Classic Camp. He just spoke to your team at Waterloo West High School where he attended in front of a statue. Really some unique things that you've had happen with that. You got a chance to be with Larry Owings, a surprise visit that he stopped by the museum, just happened to stop by. Of course, Larry Owings defeated Dan Gable in the last match of his college career, and then you got to do work for Dan Gable. All those things being said, is that just overwhelming for you to have those things happen in that type of manner?
More than overwhelming. It just presents a whole new set of tasks. How do we make our kids aware of, Dan Gable? How do we make them aware, and how do we get them to stand in awe of his accomplishments being just a kid from Waterloo? Like Tolly Thompson said yesterday, he inspired him every time he saw that gold medal when he walked by it from kindergarten on up. I want my boys to start seeing that great things are achievable by ordinary people. And Coach Gable is an ordinary person that achieved great things, and our kids can do the same. They just got to believe it, and they got to start taking steps to move in that direction. And I hope we can just be instrumental like you are by letting us come here. You are opening things up and giving us an opportunity that we don't get to do great things with ordinary kids. So this is a real privilege.
Tell us about your tree stump. Love that you take to all your meets.
Oh, yeah. The tree stump is a pretty unique thing. It was in Coach Gable's yard a couple of years ago. We were walking across his front yard because we cut, split, and stack his firewood for him and do some yard work while we're there. And there was a dead 3-trunk birch tree in his front yard. And we were walking past it, and I just casually said, "Coach, would you like that cut down?" And he said, "Well, I would, but I don't want anyone to do it because I don't want it to hit my house." Well, he was gone the next day, and that's when we were going to do the work. And so my son and I went to work, and we cut it down safely. And the only thing that was left was this 3-pronged stump. And we cut it off flush with the ground and snuck it home and varnished it and put some very unique sayings on each face. And those unique sayings came from Larry Owings here at the museum. He talked to our team and taught us 3 great things. And Coach Gable gave us some unique information and advice, and we put that on the other face. And then Tom and Terry Brand's dad gave us a piece of advice in the movie Terry when Terry came back from his competition and had lost, and told him, "You got what you earned." And we burned that on the 3rd face of the stump, and we take that to all of our dual meets as a reminder of focal points and what you can do if you believe that and have confidence in yourself. And one point I want to make is that it's not a good luck charm. Nobody in our program looks at it as a good luck charm. It's just a focal point. Before they walk out on the mat, the kids slap that after they shake our hand and walk out on the mat and remember one of those pieces of advice and maybe try to emulate that. So,
how far after a Allendale high school wrestler graduates does he start seeing all of what you're talking about? Because we do have those Allendale high school wrestlers that are giving back, coming all the way, taking time off of their jobs to be part of this. How long does it take for them to come back and say, this really was important?
Years. Really years. Some will never get it. Many get it. I think a few get it right away, but very, very few. But I think close to a decade. 5 to 10 years, and it sinks in slowly over time. And I think that when it really comes home to them is when they have their own kids, and their kids start growing up, and in this me-only world, they start seeing the importance of giving back, and then again they jump in with both feet. Like you said, we have dads here that are going crazy, just helping us facilitate the whole thing.
Were you surprised by the reach of that video interview last year?
Yeah, we were getting messages and phone calls from people on the East Coast and in Michigan, and yeah, I was really surprised and happy because now this year we get to try to duplicate ourselves, and we would love to do that. If everybody started helping everybody doing worthy things, imagine what would happen. And now this year we get to share. Sioux City Healing is here helping us and to help the museum, and I hope we keep doing that forever because imagine how much more we can get done now.
Parents are the other component of this. Mm-hmm. Do they think you're crazy for what you're trying to get accomplished? Do they see the big picture?
They do. I think some do. I think some are in transition and some never will, but the majority of our parents do. They're terrific. They are absolutely on board. They are, again, opening up their wallets. I had people the day we left handing me handfuls of money, literally, and saying, here, use it on the trip. Here, use it on the trip. Here, use it on the trip. And again, like I said, corporations, BizStream Corporation, the owner is here of BizStream. He's an alum, and giving money and giving time and now giving his labor.
This is a little more extensive trip this year, I understand. You guys are heading out west after a trip to Iowa City?
Yeah, once every 4 years, we try to do something real special with the kids to try to incentivize all the volunteer work. And, they're teenagers and they need something more sometimes. And so once every 4 years, last time we went to Colorado and climbed mountains and whitewater raft. And this year we're climbing Devil's Tower. And the most dangerous thing that we've ever done. Risky. We're hiring guides and we're doing it right, but we could use all your prayers out there. Anybody that's listening, please pray for us. We're going in a couple of days, and the boys are excited and we're excited and the parents are excited. So it's going to be a long road trip, but yeah, something special every 4 years we do with the kids that help with all the community service that we do.
You have to know that you're unique in the way you approach things. How do we make sure that your thinking continues to multiply and perpetuate itself?
I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard to keep going, and it really is discouraging many times. I think it's what Coach Gable says, and I think it's what you do, and it's what Andy does, and it's what we all do when we have, a passion for something. And I think that's probably it: is develop a passion for something, and roadblocks don't get in your way. And when they do get in your way, you find a way around them. And so I guess you got to listen to Coach Gable, and you got to listen to Tolly Thompson, and you got to listen to Brett, and you got to listen to Coach Miller, and you got to listen to these great people that have achieved great things, and you got to try to apply it in your life and bring people along as you go. And they'll learn if they see the benefit of it. They'll learn.
Jim Miller, 10-time NCAA championship coach at Wartburg College, a Division III program, who you just mentioned, came out to your program last year.
Yep.
You had some good positive feedback, not only from the wrestling community, but from some others. Fill us in on that.
Yeah, Coach came and spoke to the entire student body in our high school. And kids that were not athletes were walking up to him afterwards and letting him know that his message is one that fits into their life at a particular time when they needed something. And Coach was not anything different than he was here in the wrestling room. He was very aggressive and very forthright and very honest about what students need in order to achieve. And it spoke deeply. And we've had kids for months and months afterwards talking about the things that Coach taught us on that day. And it wasn't just wrestling. It was good life's lessons and reverberated out into the community.
Is the giving component a learned behavior? Or do you feel like you have something internal that drives you different than other people?
Mom and Dad. I come from a farm family in Michigan, family of 11, and they gave all the time. You would think that 9 kids, they'd be so self-centered and focused on those kids, but they were always helping others. They always had somebody else living with us, always doing things in the community. Dad always helping with migrant workers. It was just natural to follow them. So it was my mom and dad. It was the upbringing.
How much longer do you want to keep doing this?
These are the best times. I mean, the worst times were when you had 4 kids on the team or 6 kids on the team and you're trying to coax kids into it. And now last year we had our biggest team ever. We had well over 50 kids starting the season with us. And I don't see an end. I love this. As long as we can get kids to change their lives and respond and keep giving, there's no end in sight. This is awesome.
We're doing a podcast right now. We got to give a shout out to Phil Merrill. I don't know that there's someone that's more checked in to the sport, listens to more podcasts than Phil. How does he do it? I mean, he's the guy that you want to be in the sport because he really understands what this sport's all about.
Yeah, I've known Phil since 6th grade when he was a pudgy, roly-poly kid. And Phil is an extremely focused mechanical engineer, very analytical about everything that he does, and has just fell in love with the sport of wrestling and fell in love with my daughter and married her. And now he has 2 wrestlers and a daughter that I just love as my grandkids. And Phil finds time all the time to analyze and talk about wrestling. And he's going to do great things with his 2 boys. And I think that he'll pick up where I leave off when I finally drop dead scrubbing floors here. So,
hey, we appreciate you coming on this podcast. We love having you on the show. Thanks for coming to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum. And we'll do our best to keep your legacy going here, Duane. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Our guest today, he's got to be pretty happy. He's got 2 guys on the world team, Jordan Burroughs and James Green. He's the head wrestling coach at the University of Nebraska. He was a 2-time Division II NCAA wrestling champion, and I'm proud to say he was the head wrestling coach at the University of Northern Iowa for 3 years. Mark the Mangler Manning, how are you, Mark?
Hey, doing great, Kyle. Andy, thanks for having us on.
Anytime I get a chance to watch Mark the Mangler in that YouTube video, I get a little down, I need a pick-me-up. I'm popping that on YouTube, Mark.
Yeah, it's a good laugh, isn't it?
Well, it's fun. I love that you did that.
Yeah.
Do you still get comments?
Yes, actually, one of the basketball coaches recently saw it and brought it up to me today. He's like, "What? That was you? That was crazy!" And how that happened. He'd just been here a year or 2, but it was all good fun. And really, Coach Osborne really wanted to do it for morale, and yeah, it was great. So, but it was a little scary, I have to tell you.
Well, have you heard of this guy named Scott Frost that I keep hearing about? That's the new football coach at Nebraska.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's great, man. Yeah, I've known him for before he came coaching at Northern Iowa. He asked me about coaching there and what it was like, and he was really, that was in his early years of getting into coaching. He went there as a, I believe, defensive back or linebacker coach, defense coordinator coach. So he enjoyed his time there. So I've known him for about 15 years or so. But yeah.
He's copying you, though.
He's been a welcome.
Yeah, he's saying, "Hey, I'm going Northern Iowa and then Nebraska." He just patterned himself after you, right?
He had a few other stops there,
yeah.
But yeah,
pretty cool.
Well, I'm glad we're glad he's here as Huskers.
Well, as a Husker, you had some big things going on with Final X. You had the first leg of the Final X series. Your take on what happened? Andy and I have broken it down. We felt pleased with the result, and it seemed like a lot of people were interested and invested. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it was great. It was a really great turnout, I thought. I'm not sure, maybe 3,500 fans or so, but I thought the turnout was really good. And, James and Jordan came through, made the world team, and James for his 4th time and Jordan for his 8th time. So it's good. It's sometimes it's harder to make the world or Olympic team than to be a world Olympic champion, but hard to do both. But you can't be a world champion unless you make the world team. And so, that's not a knock on Kyle Dake or David Taylor, but neither one of them wrestled in a world championship yet. So, and they're both really good and they're both really talented, but it's a tough road. You got to really, to make the most of your opportunity, you got to be, healthy and sometimes lucky and all that stuff, just like to be in the NCAA champion. So, we really don't take it for granted. And I know James and Jordan understand that. And, they, had to beat tough competitors and James had worked out with Jason Chamberlain a lot for about 2.5 years. So yeah, they knew each other pretty well. So, but it was good. It was great for our fans and most of all, great for these 2 guys. And, they're excited about October.
Mark, beyond just having James and Jordan on the team, what were things that you wanted to see out of Final X Lincoln to chalk it up as a success?
Well, just to have a good crowd like we had. I was a little worried when you go away from a format, as long as I could remember, of all the weight classes being at one place, and I know different years we have Greco with the freestyle world team trials, and women's wrestling with the freestyle and Greco, and so when you go away from that format of all the weight classes at one place, might be great for sitting home and watch, but for us here in Lincoln, we were wanting, hey, let's get people in the stands and get people in the arena. So it's a little, we also had, a great group, four great competitors from the men's side, with Thomas Gilman, and then James, and then Jordan, and then Kyle Snyder. So we had some superstars to kind of sell the crowd and sell the wrestling fan, but sometimes it's just easy to sit at home and watch it too. So we, you never know really how it's going to turn out, but the last week or so, we saw our ticket sales go up, and then that day, a lot more people turned out, and it was fantastic, and they were really excited about it, which and they walked away happy from what I've heard from all our fans. So I thought it was a great success.
We're almost through almost to the finish line on this deal, this 3-week extravaganza. Looking ahead to 2019, what kind of format would you like to see, or possible changes, tweaks to it? What do you like?
Well, I would love to see just all 10 weight classes in one place and be Lincoln, Nebraska, but that's probably really, really unrealistic. So, I'm probably not going to have a lot of say in what materializes, but I'd love it for it to be all together, because I just think that the excitement of the fans and, for us as college coaches, people have to understand that, college coaches aren't paid by their RTCs. Well, anyway, I'm not, but, so it's a whole nother job, regional training centers. And so, being able to tell my family, hey, if Lincoln didn't host, I'd have to go on the road 3 different weekends if we had guys going to all 3 different locations. So, along with our other responsibilities of really our college guys and recruiting and all the time we put in our college team, it's a tough dynamic with the demands of having RTC. So, less travel is inviting for me, pretty exciting to say, hey, we get to host, or you only have, you have all the weight classes in one location, but, I don't know how it'll work out. I'm sure Flo and USA Wrestling have, pretty much to say there.
You had said something that just always is fascinating when you said Jordan Burroughs has made 8 consecutive world teams. James Green has made 4 teams. When you say that out loud, it's pretty mind-blowing that they've had that track record and that great success. Do you think your fans understand the scope of that, how enormous and what a big accomplishment that really is?
I just think we try to keep it rolling. We just try to keep that momentum going. And for James, he's been a 2-time world. He's sometimes the guy that gets overlooked. He's been, a 2-time world medalist, bronze and then silver last year. And, he's looking forward to being a world champion. And, at this level, it's thin air. The higher you go up the mountain, the thinner the air, and the more precious those moments are. And we just try to cherish them and take care of each year for what it's worth. We really, talk to James and Jordan about, hey, it's all about, this is a new year, it's a new beginning, and now you have to do it again. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. but you have to continue to get better, and you got to stay in the present moment, I guess, is really what our message is to those guys moving forward. And they're awesome. They're pros at what they do. I'd put these two guys up with any pro athlete out there. Obviously, we're not mainstream sport. We understand that. But these guys, this is the sport that they picture themselves as pros, and they conduct themselves that way, and they work out and train, take care of their bodies, lift the weights, they put in the time. It's just awesome. So for us, we just enjoy James and Jordan being part of not only our RTC but our program, and they're just really entrenched in it, and they love the guys on their team. We just got done with a workout. They're working out with our college guys, and they're helping them along the way and helping themselves, and they understand that, and it's pretty great. We have got a great culture, and it's great having these two guys as great examples.
Hey, Mark, at what point in this journey is the first time you thought to yourself, in Jordan's case, we might be looking at an all-time great here?
Well, after he won his third one, when he won in 2011, 2012 was like surreal. And then when he won in 2013, if you remember, he basically had broke his ankle, and about 26 days later, he wrestled and won. That's when I thought he can maybe pass John Smith. Bruce Baumgartner, this thing still has 13 world medals, right?
Yeah.
But for John, won 6 in a row, and that's always been kind of the marker. Like, hey, can you catch John? And so we've kind of ribbed John through the years, like when he got to about 2013. And John won, hey, records are made to be broken. And someone's going to come along and do it. Might as well be Jordan Burroughs. And so I knew after 2013 that this guy could maybe, but there again, he hurt his knee a little bit the next year and got hurt, got bronze. That's not chopped liver there, but it causes people to, he's never going to do it. 2016, he's not. He's reinvented himself. I've seen the transformation from 2016 to 2017. He's a different guy. From the standpoint of how he views some things, and he's got 2 young children and all that, but he just, I think what we're really catches the imagination of people and wrestling fans out there that follow this guy is that how he conducts himself off the mat. He's a sharp guy, he's articulate, he's well-spoken from the standpoint that he knows how to handle himself around people. He's, like I say, he's a pro. And so, is he perfect? No, but no one's perfect, so, but he tries to be perfect. And that's, I think people see his heart, and not only, for other people, but how he competes. They love to see when, like Chamizo, I've seen it a million times. People are telling, golly, do you think he was going to win? Heck yeah. Had no doubt. He had minute and 10 seconds left or something. He was behind. I'm like, he went and took him down twice. And so people love that. And that's what people love about our sport. You can never forget that, is people love to see in pressure moments, people going and be able to, see their spirit and see their heart, their that fighting spirit come out in. And Jordan's, showing a career of that, and so I think people, they love watching him because he brings that out in himself,
From where I sit, he made two huge jumps in college, and one being from his true freshman year, where I think he was 16 and 13, to going from that to finishing third in an unbelievable weight class his sophomore year.
Yeah.
And then he goes up to 157, and he's a whole different animal up there, and then finishing off his career. What transpired between his freshman and sophomore year that led to that first jump? And then how about the second jump that he made?
Yeah, like you said, that's a really good point, Andy. You could tell the end of his freshman year that he started figuring college wrestling out. And, I think there's a tremendous lesson. A lot of people have read about that, Jordan being 16 and 13 a freshman. Now, how in the heck 12 years later is the guy like this? It's almost mind-boggling, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that, he made up his mind somewhere there that, hey, you know what? I'm average right now. How am I going to be great? How am I going to go from good to great? And he made it up in his mind. And then he made it up that he was going to work hard. And that's where I see his work ethic. He worked harder. And he dedicated himself more to the sport. It became more important to him than a lot of things, maybe his social life. And he started sacrificing more and investing more in his career. And then once he had success, he wanted to have more and more and more. You know what I mean? It's like, dang, And so the thing is that he had, like you said, he had constant competition in his weight class. At the sophomore year, Brett Metcalf beat him up in the semis, and he didn't quite have the belief that he could beat a guy like that. And then his junior year, Mike Poeta. I mean, he had a lot of tough guys. He had Andrew Howe and Jeff and Tyler Caldwell. I mean, he always had tough guys that kept him mentally sharp, where it wasn't like, hey, he had easy weight class and you just walk through it. He wrestled guys that had been in the NCAA finals, and that made him a champion. You know what I mean? And that makes that builds an enormous amount of confidence when you have success over those guys in those moments, and then you can repeat it. And that's what happened. It just spiraled, and then made the first, won the first U.S. Open that he went to, and it was only like his third freestyle tournament. I think he made a junior world team, got beat in junior worlds, and then that was really a great turning point too for him. When he got beat in junior worlds, he came back and got better,
Well, yeah, take us through that process of 2011, because he wasn't a freestyle monster, not really known for that. He made his progression through college. Take us through winning the NCAA tournament in 2011 to the time he won the U.S. Open to winning a world championship all in the same year. How did he make that progression?
Well, it was fast and furious. It was he won the NCAA tournament, and he had, I had tough guys. Andrew Howe was in there, and everyone thought when Jordan went from 157 to 165, you have to realize he had a major knee injury, horrific knee injury between his junior year and his senior year. Well, he actually started his senior year, and then he got a medical red shirt. So that he really grew mentally during that year. And then he came back at 165, and Andrew Howe was defending national champion, and Andrew Howe is a beast to wrestle, and you better have your chin strap buttoned up because he's going to pull your head down and come at you. So that was right up Jordan's alley from the standpoint that, hey, everyone thought he was going to get out conditioned. Well, that wasn't going to happen in Jordan's case, so he mastered being able to, overcome those type of guys. And then the world level, he knew he had to beat Dennis Sardouche, but to make that, to win the U.S. Open and then wrestle to beat the street and then He won a freestyle tournament over in Ukraine before we went to World Championships, and there was a lot of good guys at that tournament. Well, actually, Andrew Howe was there, and both Polsons were in the weight class, and Jordan ended up not facing any of those guys, and he won that tournament. That gave him a lot of belief that he could win the Worlds. But beating the Russian, beating Denis Sargush was a big deal. And then, he got turned a lot. You know what I mean? He was great on his feet, and but he would get flipped and he would get chest wrapped, and he would, it was always and you have to understand the rules were a little different then. It was 1 point for takedown, so he had to score a lot of takedowns when he get on top, and when he got down, and they would turn him. Because he didn't really have great gut defense and ankle lace defense. And that came better. I remember after I got a call from Coach Gable and say, Coach Manning, great job, but Jordan needs to work on these 5-6 things. And I'm like, yeah, Coach, well, we're just teaching him the rules and making sure he's, understands some other things on freestyle too. So Jordan didn't really know all the rules and hadn't, it wasn't like he was a veteran, like Kyle Snyder coming off college season, going right into freestyle season. He didn't have that background. And so he got turned a lot. You look at those, he got turned all over the mat. Now you can't hardly turn him, And so that just shows how much of a master of the sport he is, as far as saying, hey, I'm not going to get turned, and I'm going to be a good guy on top, in which he has a lot of good turns on top. And it's fun to see. He's just evolved, and he's had to learn a lot of different styles to defend and also to score on. So, I know people out there said, hey, well, if he wrestled Kenny Monday, or if he wrestled Dave Schultz, or he wrestled, I don't know. It's fascinating to look back and say, golly, how would those things go? But Jordan's faced a lot of different styles along the way. And so I don't know. So,
well, but on that, Jordan, after the 2016 Olympics, said that he was getting all kinds of advice about you need to change this and you need to change the way you do things. Did you take that a little personal, that people were coming in and saying Jordan needed to clean house and change some things?
No, I didn't. Jordan and I had a number of talks in September and October. And so I just tried to make sure that that he trusted what I was telling him, because I've had his back since day one. So I've known the guy like my own son, And so I think Jordan realized how we can impact him, and how not only from the personal side, but from the wrestling side. And I think we've always been close, but brings people together. Even either when the storm hits, either you separate from people and your relationships gets damaged, or it brings you together. And I think it brought us together closer and more trust. And he had people all over the world reaching out to him and reaching out to me, say, hey, God, Jordan needs to do this. And I think that allowed Jordan to do, and he had that even when he was starting to win, people wanted, hey, God, Jordan, you should be able to do this and this and this. It's, sometimes too much information is not good, keep it simple, get back to what you're doing right. And people, for the most part, their heart was in the right place. They wanted what's best for Jordan. They see this guy and they think, hey, I got some advice and information that shared that might help him. No, I don't get too offended like that.
Yeah.
But I also tell Jordan, we got to narrow our focus. And so once that period of time ended, I saw Jordan really start giving back to James and help him make that year that Logan Stever and James Green with non-Olympic weights wrestled overseas in December. And Jordan started really helping James a lot. And that's when I knew he was a changed guy. So,
well, I want to take what you just said there. I'd like you to broaden your focus because, as you know, we have 10 weight classes at the World Championships and only 6 at the Olympic Games, which is a true injustice. Shouldn't we be fighting as hard as we can to make sure we get 10 Olympic weight classes? I know you have to stay focused on the athlete and what you can control, but shouldn't we be trying really hard to get 10 Olympic weight classes so James Green doesn't have to decide?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to keep a presence in FILA, and we need to have a big presence in UWW worldwide, because 10 weight classes are needed, like you said. I mean, for our sport to continue to grow, we're the oldest sport out there, and I mean, it's crazy that it was ever thought about getting dropped, and for whatever reason that international community and the people that were running our governing body at the time were corrupt and not had the best interest of the wrestlers and the sport in mind, but they had their own self-interest. But now that we got those people out of there, UWW needs to really push the International Olympic Committee for 10 weight classes. It's nothing against any other sport, but to have, man, I can name some sports out there that have so many more events, and it's all about numbers. And to add 4 more weight classes in a great sport like wrestling, it's a shame. We need to have 10 weight classes. Absolutely. I feel bad for a guy like James Green who, he's caught in between, or Logan Stever, for instance. His weight class might. I'm not exactly sure, but depending on the 6 weight classes, there's going to be a lot of good guys left off that team. And, all these guys dream about being an Olympic champion.
A guy that I like a lot, Brian Snyder, is your assistant coach at University of Nebraska. Interesting guys. If I remember right, he took a couple years off, wasn't a coach for a while, maybe went into the private sector and then came back. What kind of skill sets does he bring to the sport that's unique?
Well, Brian is one. He's a sharp guy. He's a doctor, and so I guess he's got his master's, and then he went on and got his doctorate degree, which is pretty impressive. But he's a very sharp guy. But he's a student of the game, and that's why he's here, and he helps out James and Jordan a lot. Being a student of the game, and he's all entrenched in their lives and in their careers and what he can do for them, as a coach and as a mentor. And so he's great. He's great at what he does, and he works at it, and he's always trying to get better. That's what I'm really impressed by. And, we're lifetime friends. We're obviously colleagues. We work together every day of the week, a lot of hours. And, he's great at what he does, and he's always trying to get better. And, whether it's in the room, one-on-one, he's just got good administrative skills. He's going to be, he's already a good head coach. I see him as a head coach. So, if he wants to go somewhere and be a head coach, he's turned down a lot of offers, but he's as good as it gets out there.
One of the things you guys do a great job of is recognizing your legends, your heroes that have gone through the Nebraska program. You have all the NCAA champions and then all the world team members with big banners in your arena. How do we get more programs to do something similar? And how did you get your program to get on board and do something like that?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of great history here at Nebraska, and a lot, before I got here, and so they did a great job of displaying that. And then when our arena kind of we got a facelift about 7-8 years ago here at the Duane Center. They came to us about, hey, what would you like to see? And we just talked to them about displaying those banners and NCAA champions, Olympians, world team members. It just, they took to it, and they're smart people, so they believe that it was going to help us, and it helps fans. It's all about Husker Nation, and it was people love to see those things. People want to see programs have success and then display that, and they're great. It's great for branding, and it's great for it's a celebration of your whole entire school and your program, not just one guy. It's great. So,
Mark, we want to play a game with you. We like to play games. We have one of 3 games that we play. We've decided a nice hearty game of true or false for you. Are you ready to play?
Absolutely.
All right. True or false? The World Team Trials will be back in Lincoln next year.
True.
All right. I like your conviction there.
Breaking news, right?
Yeah, breaking news. It's going to be back in Lincoln. I don't know what format, but it's going to be back in Lincoln. We got that from Mark Manning. All right. You wrestled at Nebraska Omaha. You were a 2-time Division II champion. True or false? At least one tear came down your face when UNO dropped its wrestling program.
True.
What was that like? Do you remember the moment?
Yeah, it was a Sunday. A few hours after Mike Denny got the call from their administration that they were going to drop it. I was actually, obviously, just like a lot of other people, disbelief. Like, what the heck? I couldn't believe it. I just, my heart really went out for Coach Denny. All the time and commitment he put into that program, and what he made there and what he built. And what he built was young men to go on and have success. And that's what our sport is all about. And is giving opportunities in college, but really preparing them for life. And that's Mike Denny does as good a job as anyone out there. And how many high school coaches he put out there, and just up and down the line, it's just all the people that have success coming out of that program in their lives. I know Mike Denny was very instrumental in that happening.
I still can't believe it. So when you bring it up and we talk about it, it still resonates, because hard to believe that happened. Number 3, true or false? Jordan Burroughs is the greatest wrestler in U.S. history.
Ooh, true or false?
Yeah, true or false. No middle ground either. You can't say maybe or something like that. It's got to be one or the other.
Well, soon to be.
I got to get a true or false
Boy,
though
that's
here.
a tough one. I can't answer that, Kyle.
Oh my gosh. All right, we're going to let you pass on that, but I would think you'd be just wholeheartedly true on that.
Well, his journey's not done. We can't say yes now.
Okay. All right, I'm going to give you a pass because it's historical, and I actually like the direction there. Number 4, Mark Manning would be starstruck if Bruce Springsteen walked into his office unannounced.
Yes, true.
Would you? What do you think you'd do?
Oh man, it'd be, hey, I'd maybe have him hum, Born in the USA, and rock out with him there a little bit. It'd be cool.
I love it.
He's a Jersey guy, Jersey guy.
Yeah, you got to do that. Yeah, you get 2 Jersey guys, Burroughs and Springsteen, in there rocking it out. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Number 5, for $1 million, you could avoid getting taken down by James Green for a full minute.
True.
You could avoid that. Now there's rules too. There's an official. I'm not saying just you could run around.
Do I have to take a drug test too? But I'm going to say true.
All right. And then we got a bonus here. True or false? James Green and Jordan Burroughs will both be at 74 kilos in 2020.
No, I'd have to say true. I mean, it looks like it's inevitable.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
James Green he's not going down to 65 kilos. I didn't tell you that. He's darn near. Oh man, he was
sucked out, wasn't he?
It was just amazing what he did to make that weight. Is amazing.
Hey, thanks for joining us on this game. You had all trues except for one. So we had to add the extra question. Andy pulled that out, so I appreciate him stepping up his game there. But thanks for playing the game with us. Thanks for being on the mat. We enjoyed it. And hey, we're going to see you in Lincoln next year for the World Team Trials.
That's right. Well, we'll see each other before that.
Well, we will. We'll at least see you in Pittsburgh or some dual meet, and then we're going to see you when we set the all-time record in the Twin Cities for the NCAA championship. So we have a lot of great wrestling coming.
That's right. Well, I appreciate it, Andy and Kyle. You guys do an awesome job. So thanks for having our program on.
All right. We appreciate that. That was Mark Manning, the Mangler. For Andy Hamilton, I'm Kyle Klingman. You've been listening to On the Mat.
This show is part of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MatTalkOnline.com.